Kayleigh McEnany, wow, maybe the best press secretary we've ever seen. I'm not going to bury the lead on it. I'm going to jump right to this. Jim Acosta asks her about Donald Trump's rally and COVID fears, and she literally pulls up the physical copy of the New York Post showing the sick hypocrisy. Woo! You love to see it. Man, I just really love the hypocrisy being slapped in their faces. You know, they were trying to sue Trump to block his rally from happening. How are we in this fractured timeline is the question I often ask, right? How is it that CNN can simultaneously say, wow, 10,000 protesters, what a great thing. And then, but Trump is going to have a rally. Finally, they walked right into the trap. And to see Kayleigh McEnany pull up that paper, I can't believe when I saw this article. I could not help but laugh. Glorious. Kayleigh, excellent job. Let me read you the story and then we'll talk about Trump's rally. They say, as expected, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany was inundated with questions about President Trump's decision to hold a campaign rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma this Saturday. Jim Acosta, acting very concerned, noted that Oklahoma has experienced an uptick in coronavirus cases recently since the state has begun to reopen. McEnany responded with the cover of the New York Post. On Tuesday's front page, the Post exposed a bit of media hypocrisy. On the one hand, and Democrat hypocrisy. NBC News was concerned about Trump's upcoming rally and how it will draw tens of thousands of people at a time when we're supposed to still be social distancing. On the other hand, the outlet glowingly reported on a Black Trans Lives Matter rally, which also featured thousands of participants. But why? Both the Post and McEnany asked, is it okay? Was one okay and not the other? Here you can see, this is amazing. So I saw this tweet and at first I read it. I'm like, yeah, she literally held up the paper. She brought the physical newspaper into the White House press briefing. Absolutely amazing. So here's the image. You can see it. Alternative News tweeted, Jim Acosta just repeatedly criticized Trump for his upcoming rally and how social distancing will be impossible. Press secretary then whipped out the front page of the Post showing that it's only okay, according to the media, for people to gather in groups while they're in the streets. After fielding what she tallied was her 10th question on campaign rallies, the press secretary instructed the press room to exhibit the same concern for protesters who are not social distancing and are not wearing masks as they are for Trump campaign goers. Protests and riots have sprung up all over the country after the tragic Minneapolis police killing of George Floyd. And it's not just one protest or one rally in New York. Across the country, the protests have not stopped, even in small towns. If you haven't seen the segment I did on it, go to timcast.net. Check it out. I put it up today. A small town like Ohio or something, a town of 2,800 people, had 80 people show up to protest and around 700 counter protesters. But mind you, the protests are still happening. Where is the media to condemn this? And why aren't we hearing these stories about the ongoing protests? You know, in Portland, it's like day 20 of protests. In D.C., they're still marching. Yet we don't see news coverage of it. Why? Old news. But Donald Trump's campaign rally, oh, we can't have that. By the way, Acosta wondered, why is Trump holding a rally in the first place since it's not in support of anything? What? It's not in support of anything. A defiant McEnany explained that he and his supporters are rallying on behalf of the administration's successes. Or Trump's re-election in 5 months? Come on, dude. She ended the briefing and walked out by waving the NY Post cover once more and adding, I hope we start seeing more consistent headlines. Bravo, Miss McEnany. Wow, she has been absolutely on fire with calling out the fake news. And I wonder how many people can see it. Look, I think it's silly often when people say the media won't tell you this, the media won't cover that. It's true. I say it sometimes too. But I try to be more reserved in my use of this because quite honestly, the media does report on these things. Has Jim Acosta now done his stand-up or did he criticize her without explaining? She called him out. Tribalism. I really doubt he mentioned anything. But let's take a look at the real hypocrisy. So my respect to Miss McEnany, but we got a serious problem right here. Check this out. Now, this is good news. Judge denies request to force coronavirus safety measures at Trump's Tulsa rally. Wow. How could this be that we are in this world where thousands of people can protest, no lawsuits? That's it. Why is it that the conservatives are always on the defensive on this one? Somebody actually tried suing Trump to force him to either end his rally or have some kind of safety measure. Yet no one is suing any of these organizations that are setting up these massive protests that are in violation of CDC guidelines. The media won't call it out. It's truly a disgusting time, man. Look, a lot of people have said, red pill Tim, red pill that, whatever. No, let me explain something to you. What you're seeing is the spread. Back in 2014, this weird wokeness was infecting, this weird leftist tribalism was infecting gaming and film and eventually comics. And some people started to take notice. The people mostly in the communities noticed because they were being attacked. They then started calling it red pilling when people realized what was happening. No, that's not fair. Because what was happening to your industry wasn't happening to every other industry. It wasn't about waking up to the reality of the world. It was about the left infecting your discipline. We've now seen the media be completely zombified. I worked for these media companies. When I started at Vice, they were not all about wokeness. When I started at Fusion, they actually rejected partisanship. But the zombie bite hit, and it started to spread. The infection got worse. And I jumped out, shattering through the window, flying to the floor, burning up the contract. I'm kidding. But I walked away from a fairly lucrative job and wanted out of my contract. Ultimately, they refused to let me out. The contract expired and I left because they were infected by the zombie bite. It is progressively getting worse. Now the entire media industry is infected. The New York Times is firing people. All of these we had 8 or 9 in the past week or so being fired, purged, accused of all these awful things. They've taken over. And in their takeover, they will not tell you the truth because the real journalists have been kicked out. And what's replacing them are zombified ideologues. Because of this, conservatives will consistently be on the defensive. Everything they say will be fake news. They'll be called conspiracy theorists and liars. My favorite thing right now is that there's an effort to get me labeled a conspiracy theorist because I comment on other reporting certified by a third-party agency. Think about that. Rachel Maddow literally screeched for years. Is she called a conspiracy theorist? No, only by conservatives. And therein lies the bigger problem here. I think conservatives need to stop acting like this press matters. Listen, I was once told, I was invited to a speaking event. They told me they'd cover my accommodation, but they wouldn't pay me to speak. And I was considering doing it. And I was told by my agent at the time that you are their event's entertainment. They are going to make money off of what you do, and they don't want to pay you for it, but they will certainly profit for it. And I said, that's a really good point. And because of that, I said no to doing the event. And you know what? I don't really do events anymore unless I'm hosting them or putting them on because I don't want to deal with, I'm not going to be someone else's entertainment. This is what conservatives need to realize when they give statements, when they talk to the press. For one, they're going to lie about you and smear you because they've been infested and zombified. It's effectively now weird, body snatchers wearing the old organizations as a skin suit, flopping around with nonprofit money. I love that analogy, by the way. But they're not going to give you a fair shake. They will use you, however. So maybe it's time you start saying no. And many people already do, but I often see people try and look, I'm talking about the GOP. I'm talking about Republicans who are like, they get asked a question and they say, oh, let me give you a comment so you can write articles and make money and then lie about me. How about you guys in Congress and the Senate, when you get asked by these big outlets, say, no comment. That's it. Could you imagine what would happen? I don't know if it would be a great thing, but hey, if they're going to lie about you, if they're going to lie about Trump and they're going to lie about what's going on with the American people and prop up a double standard that benefits your ideological opponents, you have nothing to gain from talking to them. You are not sharing your ideas with their audience because they're lying about your ideas. They do it all the time. But you have access to your own platforms now. That's why we're seeing a rise in conservative media on social media. It's why I think the Daily Wire and Fox News dominate on Facebook because people know you're getting fake news. When you turn on when you turn on CNN, it is so fake. Brian Stelter is like one of the worst purveyors of fake news because while I can point to Chris Cuomo for straight up lying, Brian Stelter is the guy who's the shield for all of them. It's beyond just one person saying a lie. Brian Stelter is the one who masks what they do and he covers for them. We're the real news. Don't listen to the spin. Well, you'll still get the real news from some prominent outlets, but they're all starting to get infected. The New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, they're fairly conservative. There's a lot of conservative outlets. So I'll put it this way. Why don't you just refuse to give comments to outlets that you know to be biased? That could include some conservative outlets. Maybe you just stop letting these people profit off of what you think and what you say when you know they're not going to frame things properly. Now, the fear I see here is the left and the right creating their own media outlets, and then no one agrees on what's happening. The only problem that's already happened. So how do you stop this? I don't know. Get some conservatives in these companies? No, they've purged the conservatives. And there you have it. The only path I see moving forward is that the left and the right will have their own individual outlets and there will be no unbiased journalism. In which case, stop giving them comments. Stop engaging with people who just want to lie. This is the one reason why I block people on Twitter. I didn't used to do it, but I do it now because people will take things out of context to create gotcha moments and hot takes. I'm not interested in you and in being your entertainment for your crowd. So if you're going to come to my Twitter and start screen grabbing everything to make an out of context joke, I'm just going to block you so you don't do it. And it's that simple. But I don't know. All I can really say is at least we have Kayleigh McEnany holding up the New York Post. And at least we have the New York Post calling it out, right? There are a lot of people who are doing good work in media these days, but we got serious problems. And I think it's only a downward spiral. Maybe these companies will collapse under the weight of their own wokeness. And then independent channels and honest channels will rise up in their wake. So, maybe we're in for some good news in the future. As per usual, I guess we'll wait and see. But thanks for hanging out. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. on this channel. Actually, unless you come to the podcast tonight. So 8 p.m. tonight, we'll do the Timcast IRL podcast live. If you want to check it out, it's youtube.com/TimcastIRL. But other than that, I'll see you all next time.